troches. The troche has been around for a long time, often used among ancient Egyptians who would make lozenges from honey, herbs, and spices to treat sore throats. Troche, also known as lozenges, is a solid dosage form, usually containing a medicinal agent and a flavoring substance. Molded lozenges have a softer texture because they contain a high percentage of sugar or a combination of gelatin and sugar. Hard lozenges have hard candy bases made of sugar and syrup and often incorporate an adhesive substance such as acacia. Soft lozenges generally have a polyethylene glycol base, whereas chewable lozenges have a glycerin gelatin base. These dosage forms, usually chewed, are a means of delivering the product to the GI tract for systemic absorption. Lozenges have been used to deliver topical anesthetics and antibacterials for the relief of throat pain and irritation, and today they are used for many drug classes. Soft lozenges are similar to a historic form of medication known as the co-infection. Co-infections are soft masses containing medicinal agents. Co-infections are easy to use, convenient to carry, easy to store, and typically taste well. A popular lozenge for pediatric use is a chewable gummy type lozenge. The gelatin base for these chewable lozenges is similar to traditional glycerin suppositories or glycerinated gelatin suppositories that consist of 70% glycerin, 20% gelatin, and 10% purified water. In the past, some of the earlier soft lozenges consisted of a gelatin or a glycerogelatin base. These were prepared by pouring the melt into molds or by pouring it out to form a sheet of uniform thickness, and then they were punched out using various shape punches. The last step often included dusting the preparation with cornstarch or powdered sugar to decrease tackiness. Therapeutic uses of troches. Depending on the active pharmaceutical ingredient, the therapeutic use can vary. Troches are often used in the pediatric population, specifically the gummies. Troches are also used in the geriatric population. Patients who are unable to swallow solid oral dosage forms, medications designed for slow release. Troches are often used to mask the taste of medications. And for patients who need a quick onset of action, troches can deliver hormone therapy directly into the bloodstream, allowing the medication to work quickly. Troches can also bypass first-pass metabolism. In order to do the gummy gelatin troche lab, first you need to do some calculations. In your lab manual, you have the amounts for one troche. Today we are going to be making 30 troches total. To account for the extra 10%, we will be doing the calculations based upon 33 troches. The amount of gelatin base required for this formulation prior to displacement of any of the powders or liquids is 1.144 grams per troche. This is how much gelatin base is required to fill in each square or mold in the container that holds the troches. First, we have to account for the displacement of the powders. The powders will displace 90% of its weight of the base, and the liquids are displaced at 100% of the base. Therefore, there are additional calculations for the powders. First, you're going to take each weight of the powder for one troche and multiply it by 90%. For example, the silica gel would be 0.01 grams multiplied by 0.9 to give you 0.009 grams. Now that we have accounted for the displacement of the powders, subtract the 90% of the weight of the powders and 100% of the liquids from 1.144 grams. You end up with 1.09312 grams, and this is the amount of gelatin base needed for one troche. Now we need the amount of gelatin base for 33 troches. Now you will take the answer from step 2 and multiply that by 33. You should get 36.07296 grams of gelatin base for 33 troches. Now, all the powders and liquids used in this lab will need to be multiplied by 33 in order to get the amount for all 33 troches. Here are the final amounts for the lab today. Silica gel should be 0.297 grams. You'll need 0.258 grams of the steviosides. You'll need 0.49 grams of acacia, 0.6336 milliliters of the flavor, 2 drops of food coloring, and finally 36.07296 grams of the gelatin. In order to do the polyglycol troche lab, first there are some calculations. In your lab manual, you have the amounts for 1 troche. Today we are going to be making 30 troches total. To account for the extra 10%, we will be doing the calculations based upon 33 troches. The amount of polyglycol troche base required for this formulation prior to displacement of any powders or liquids is 1.025 grams per troche. For the polyglycol, we are only adding liquid to the base. Therefore, we just need to subtract 100% of the liquid from the base. This will give you the amount of polyglycol base needed per troche. Then multiply by 33 for the total amount of base needed. Also multiply the amount of flavor per troche, which is 0.0192, by 33 for the total amount of flavor needed. When you subtract 100% of the liquid from the base, you get 1.0058. This is the amount of polyglycol base needed for 1 troche. Then multiply this number by 33, which gives you 33.1914 grams. And this is the total amount of polyglycol base needed for 33 troches. The total amount of flavor needed for 33 troches is 0.6336 milliliters. Below are the final amounts for the lab today.
We've got the scale for weighing out things. We've got the heating plate here, 1,000 milliliter beaker, the 400 milliliter beaker, and then a large spatula. We're going to use these 4 things together to make a hot water bath. We've got scissors right here that we're going to use to cut out the gelatin, which will melt in the hot water bath. Then we have 3 solids, which we're going to add to the gelatin once it's melted. And the 3 solids are silica gel, acacia, and steviol. And then we're going to have the motor and pestle right here for mixing the solids together. Then we'll sift using the sifter into the gel. We also got a stirring rod for stirring once everything's all together. And then we have food coloring and food flavoring to add to the troche. And then this is where we'll pour our mixture to let the troches form and cool.
100 ml beaker, place it on the scale and tear it out. Then you're going to grab your scissors and start cutting pieces of gelatin and weighing out 36 grams.
Milliliter beaker, fill it up to about 900 milliliters of water for the hot water bath. You're going to take the spatula and prop it inside of the 1,000 milliliter beaker. And then you're going to place the cut up gelatin inside the beaker. You want to prop it up so that the water is covering the gelatin. After this, you want to turn the temperature to about 100 degrees Celsius to allow the gelatin to melt.
Add your powders to the mortar and pestle. First, you're gonna weigh them out on the scale. You're going to take 0.258 grams of the silica gel and add that into the mortar and pestle. Then take 0.297 grams of the acacia. And then 0.49 grams of the stevioglycosides. And then you're going to mix them in the mortar and pestle.
Step 4, you're going to sift your mixture of solutes into the melted gel. Now stir with the stir rod, like so.
Now add 0.6 milliliters of flavor. And then add 2 drops of the food coloring that matches your flavor. now stir the food coloring and flavor in.
For the next step, we're going to pour our product into the troche plate, and then you're going to want to smooth over any excess with a warm knife. So if you heat up the knife on the hot plate for 20 seconds or so, it should work pretty well. And then now we're going to pour. Those are pretty full, and so then you're going to take your warm edge and slide over all of them. We've got the scale here. This is the heating plate, a 400 milliliter beaker, which we're gonna put the polyglycol in. The burning point for polyglycol is much higher than for the gelatin, so we can use direct heat. We're also gonna have the stir bar here, or the spinning bar, and then we have a stir rod, and then flavoring here, food coloring, and then PAM to lubricate the thing that's gonna hold the troches, and that's it.
So the next step, we're going to spray mold cavities with PAM and allow excess to drain on a paper towel. Flipping it, allowing it to drain.
All right, you're gonna get the 400 ml beaker and place it on the scale and drop the spin bar in. You're gonna zero this out, and you're gonna weigh out 33 grams of the base.
Next, you're going to take the beaker and melt it at 50 degrees Celsius.
Now that it's melted, you're gonna add 0.6 mLs of your flavoring and 2 drops of the food coloring, and let it mix.
Oh yeah. Pour into mold once the beaker is cool enough to hold in the palm of your hand. Make certain that all cavities contain the same amount. Allow to congeal at room temperature and do not close the mold.
Major counseling points for troches. All troches should be stored at controlled room temperature or controlled refrigerated temperature depending on the active pharmaceutical ingredient. Stored in a tight container to prevent the troches from drying out. It is recommended not to leave in areas where the temperature can change, such as your car. Do not swallow the troche. Do not eat, drink, or sleep with the troche in your mouth. And the gelatin troche should be chewed, and the polyglycol troche should be dissolved slowly on the side of your jaw. The beyond use date. The maximum beyond use date after compounding depends on the active pharmaceutical ingredient. In today's labs, we will not be using an API.